right. Good to be with you today. Thanks for being here. So let me just figure out what we're doing today. Isaiah 7:11. Let's switch things around here so we can see better. There we go. That'll make it easier. So we're going to jump over here and go through Isaiah today. Some days we get a bit lengthy in the amount that we're going to try to make it through, and today is one of those days. So we're going to see what all we can find and figure out here in Isaiah as we're still going through the Bible in a year. So thanks for joining. Thanks for watching later. Thanks for all the support. I hope you're keeping up. And we're just 2 weeks in, so don't give up yet. Hang in there. Whether you're following along or you're doing it slightly different, just going to encourage you to keep with it and just do all you can to stay in God's word. So, all right. So when Ahaz, son of Jotham, the son of Uzziah, was king of Judah, King Rezin of Aram and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, marched up to fight against Jerusalem, but they could not overpower it. Now the house of David was told, Aram has allied itself with Ephraim. So the hearts of Ahaz and his people were shaken as the trees of a forest are shaken by wind. Isn't that a great description? Then the Lord said to Isaiah, Go out, you and your son, Shear Jashub. Not sure I got that right. Jashub? To meet Ahaz at the end of the aqueduct of the upper pool on the road to the Larander's field. Let me say, yeah, Launderer's field. Launderer's field. Launderer's field. Say to him, Be careful, keep calm, and do not be afraid. Do not lose heart because of these two smoldering stubs of firewood, because of the fierce anger of Rezin and Aram and the son of Remaliah. Aram, Ephraim, and Remaliah's son have plotted your ruin, saying, Let us invade Judah. Let us tear it apart and divide it amongst ourselves, and make the son of Tabal king over it. Yet this is what the sovereign Lord says. All right, so that's a whole bunch of names and kings, and if we were reading connected passages, we'd probably be in Kings or Chronicles along with at this time, and seeing what they have. So, but we're not going to jump over there. But so this is all happening for Isaiah. It will not take place. It will not happen. Ooh. For the head of Aram is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. Within 65 years, Ephraim will be too shattered to be a people. The head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. Ooh, that is a good statement. If you do not stand firm in your faith, you will not stand at all. Yeah, it might be a phrase worth memorizing. Now, yes, it's particularly given here to a particular time, but that's just, I would say, truth. Again, the Lord spoke to Ahaz, Ask the Lord your God for a sign, whether in the deepest depths or the highest heights. But Ahaz said, I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test. Then Israel said, Hear now, you house of David, it is not enough to try the patience of human. Will you try the patience of my God also? Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel. He will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. For before the boy knows enough to reject wrong and choose right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. The Lord will bring on you and your people and on the house of your fathers a time unlike any since Ephraim broke away from Judah. He will bring the king of Assyria. So, interesting thing here. Ahaz is told to ask God for a sign. He's like, no, I'm going to put God to the test. It's and then it's no. God told you that you needed to ask for a sign so that he could affirm this to you, and you chose to say, no, I'm not going to put God to this. God's the one that told you and invited you to ask for a sign. It wouldn't be putting God to the test to do that, because he's the one who has, instructed you to do so. So how would it be putting him to the test if he instructed you to do this? And so that's why he's being told, you don't want to ask for a sign? Fine. Here's the sign that you're going to give. Now we look into the New Testament and we see this reading, and it says the virgin will conceive and give birth, and you will call his name Emmanuel. And we go, oh, that's about Jesus. And rightfully so, as we read it in the New Testament. But to read it here in context in the Old Testament, it doesn't seem necessarily like it would be talking about or looking forward to the Messiah. And see, that's one of the misconceptions that we often fall into when we look at the New Testament, and they say, well, the prophet said this and this is fulfilled here. Not every time that they're saying that are they thinking, nor should we think, that the prophet, when they were saying that, was intending to say, I'm making a prophecy. Now here, clearly there is an intent, and you can see more specifics with there. But not every time does it, when we read the context, automatically think it matches the New Testament. And it doesn't have to. The one who's writing the New Testament sees an additional or a partial or a complete, however it might be, fulfillment of something that is from the Old Testament. And so it's a sign pointing to God, and that God does these things and follows this pattern and has fulfillments. I love an image that one of my professors in seminary did. I'll have to try to get a copy of it and sometime to share with. But just think of a spiral loop going out, and what that is, it starts small, so it'd be close to the source, and it gets bigger as it goes further out, and you just draw this linear. And then we just say every time that loop comes back down on this plane, there's a fulfillment of that prophecy in some way. And so you can have big loops and loops that get bigger, and so you could have a prophecy potentially fulfilled in the original context, in the short term after that, in the life of Jesus, in the life of the church, and in the second coming of Christ. And it can still be one singular prophecy that what it is God's truth declared and then repeated and seen again. And so that's what's potentially we need to think about things, not just I'm going to prophesy now and I'm going to predict the future. That's not how we should understand prophecy. Prophecy really just means to speak the word of God. And so the prophets are the ones who speak the word of God. We have narrowed the thought of prophecy to simply mean predicting the future, and that's not how we should see or understand it. Because if we read some other places where it says, for instance, Saul prophesied, it's describing singing. And so how is he prophesying if he's singing? Well, he is. He is. So we need to broaden our sense and understanding of what prophecy means. So, all right, enough sidetrack there. We're going to be here for a long time. Hey, ukulele, see you lurking there. Thanks for being here. And yeah, if you have any questions along the way or anything, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep working my way through Isaiah. We got about 4 chapters today. In the day, the Lord will whistle for flies from the Nile Delta in Egypt and for bees in the land of Assyria. They will all come and settle in the steep ravines and in the crevices, in the rocks, on all the thorn bushes, and at all the water holes. Now, just pause here. If we were to think that all of this has to happen when the virgin gives birth to a son with Jesus, boy, I don't remember any of that happening in Jesus' birth. So, just adding to what I was saying, hopefully. All right, continuing. In that day, the Lord will use a razor hired from beyond the Euphrates, the king of Assyria, to shave your head and private parts and to cut off your beard also. Notice the progression here of humiliation. Now you might say, well, wait a minute. Shaving your head, yeah, that would have been considered humiliating. Shaving your private parts, well, I think we all would agree that's humiliating. But notice the shaving your beard, that is very pointed within this culture. I'm clean shaven. I wouldn't think anything of somebody shaving my beard. I wouldn't think necessarily something of somebody shaving my head. However, if you watched Cobra Kai, there's a kid in there that had a mohawk, and that's what they did to him to humiliate him. They shaved his mohawk off. So you can see sometimes how this could be a humiliation. So interesting. Let's see, where did I leave off? Cut off the beard. Okay. In that day, a person will keep alive a young cow and 2 goats, and because of the abundance of the milk they give, there will be curds to eat. All who remain in the land will eat curds and honey. In that day, in every place where there were 1,000 vines worth 1,000 silver shekels, there will be only briars and thorns. Hunters will be there with bow and arrow, for the land will be covered with briars and thorns. As for all the hills once cultivated by the hoe, you will no longer go there for fear of the briars and thorns, and they will become places where cattle are turned loose and where sheep run. Okay, so just talking about the destruction that is going to come. The king of Assyria is going to come and conquer. The Lord said to me, take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen. Okay, don't use an extraordinary pen. It's interesting. I find words like that and phrases sometimes just peculiar and wonder why they're there. But nonetheless, it's all would be speculation anyway. But I wonder and ponder those things at times. I will say here too, I do quite occasionally point out that chapter breaks are usually, or not usually, they're often in bad places. Well, here this seems like a good place because it's a new section. Take a scroll and write on it. So I want to point out this is a good chapter break. So we're starting a new chapter. And he's got new instructions. So take a large scroll and write on it with an ordinary pen. Mahar Shalal Hashbaz. So I called to Uriah the priest and Zechariah son of Jeb, Jeb, Jeberechiah. Whew, that one took me a minute. As reliable witness for me. Then I made love to the prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said to me, name her Mahar Shalal Hashbaz. The name he was told to write down. For before the boy grows, the boy knows how to say, my father and my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. So, if we were to say when, where, how was this passage we read in 7, the virgin will conceive and give birth, here it says that she conceived and gave birth to a son. And before the child's able to say mother and father, all the rest of the things that were said in chapter 7 are going to take place. So, um, yeah, just on the side here of the words up here where it says the virgin will conceive. Since we had just read this in in Matthew, I believe. Um, yeah, here it is. The virgin will conceive. There's people who argue that this word does not have to mean virgin. However, you can go watch some videos. A couple people have done really good videos on talking about the virgin and the use of the word, and why Matthew uses it that way, and why throughout the Old Testament it is used that way. Some make the argument, well, there's a different word that could be used. Well, yeah, there is a different word that could be used. This one could simply mean a young maiden, but it also can mean a virgin. And then if you look, I believe at the Septuagint, the word there makes it more clear, and Matthew is probably reading from the Septuagint when he's quoting it. So just because we're trying to make connections with other things we're reading, that's the only reason I pause there. Not because I think there's controversy within it, but if you ever run into it or hear that, know that that's part of it. It's a word and translation concern that people have and usage, and it can mean that, and it does mean that in places. So it's a natural use of it, even if there is a different word that could be used. So. All right, we'll continue now. The Lord spoke to me again. Because this people has rejected the gentle flowing water of Shiloh and rejoices over Rezin and the son Remaliah, therefore the Lord is about to bring against them the mighty floodwaters of the Euphrates, the king of Assyria, with all his pomp. Ooh, that's good. With all his pomp. It will overflow all its channels, run over all its bank, and sweep on into Judah, swirling over it, passing through it, reaching up to the neck. Its outspread wings will cover the breadth of the land. Emmanuel. Ooh, that's curious. I'll come back to that. Raise the war cry, you nations, and be shattered. Listen, all you distant lands. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Prepare for battle and be shattered. Devise your strategy, but it will be thwarted. Propose your plan, but it will not stand, for God is with us. So, yeah. Assyria is going to come from the Euphrates. He's going to come down, and he's going to sweep even over into Judah. Now, Emmanuel, God with us. So that's why I was pausing here, because it says God with us. That's what Emmanuel means. So here it's just put Emmanuel, and then here at the end it says, for God is with us. It says, but it will not stand. It will be thwarted. So we'll see. The northern kingdom is taken away. Judah is not. So God is with Judah and this time, and so the invasion into Judah isn't going to overtake everything, but we'll see. It does overtake everything in the northern kingdom of Israel. So at this time, there's two kingdoms. If you ever get confused about that, spelling wise, Hij, so I comes before J, so I is north, J is south, so Israel is the northern kingdom, Judah is the southern kingdom. I find it curious that how often you can just use that. If you get confused about things, most often you can figure out alphabetically which comes first, and it's either to the left or it's to the top. I don't know why that happens, but it often happens biblically. And I'm sure you go to a different language, it's not going to work that way. But in English, it does work that way often. Might not work that way in Hebrew or Greek, but when we translate it to English, then we get that. So let's keep going. This is what the Lord says to me with his strong hand upon me. Warn me not to follow the way of this people. Do not call conspiracy everything this people calls a conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear and do not dread it. Oh, wow. Could that not be a warning for today? I mean, I'm not saying it is, but do not call conspiracy everything this people calls a conspiracy. Do not fear what they fear and do not dread it. There are so many people that think there's conspiracy behind every door in every closet and under every rug. There's a conspiracy hiding. And they're very fearful people. So, yeah, just warning against that. So it's not a new phenomenon that there's conspiracies. That's an old thing. The Lord Almighty is the one you are to regard as holy. He is the one you are to fear. He is the one you are to dread. He will be a holy place for both Israel and Judah. He will be a stone that causes people to stumble and a rock that makes them fall. I don't know if this rings true. The stone which the builders rejected became the cornerstone. Um, I, I think Paul also uses a stumbling block in other places too. So a couple of New Testaments are pulling on this imagery here. There should New Testament passages. And for the people of Jerusalem, he will be a trap and a snare. Many of them will stumble. They will fall and be broken. They will be snared and captured. Bind up this testimony of warning and seal up God's instructions among my disciples. I will wait for the Lord, who is hiding his face from the descendants of Jacob. I will put my trust in him. Here I am, and the children the Lord has given me. We are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty who dwells on Mount Zion. So there's proof against the conspiracies. That's part of what he's saying there. And the Isaiah and his children, and the children God has given him, are symbols against it. That's kind of fascinating. When someone tells you to consult mediums and spiritists, who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? Consult God's instructions and the testimony of warning. If anyone does not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged and, looking upward, will curse their king and their God. Then they will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. This has some apocalyptic kind of language and imagery here. The casting out into utter darkness kind of thing, and the distress and the hunger and there's some apocalyptic kind of language here, and no doubt that that's intentional because it's going to feel like the end of the world when all of this distress happens. But don't go talk to the dead. Why are you going to talk to the dead about the living? What do they know about the living? They're dead. You want to talk about the living, talk to God, who's the God of the living and not the God of the dead. Um, so, anyway, um, here's the warning. Remember the warning. Here's the sign of it. Don't need to go to other places to figure this out. You just need to consult and trust in God and God alone. Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who were in distress. In the past, he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. But in the future, he will honor Galilee of the nations by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan. Boom! He's going to honor Galilee. Now you're going, what are you talking about? That's a big thing or whatever. Well, Galilee is where Jesus is from. Remember we read that. Joseph of Galilee, and he goes down to Bethlehem, and then when he returns back to Galilee, to a town called Nazareth. So Galilee of the nations, and that's not a hot spot. I'd dox myself and mention a few places nearby me, but even if I did, nobody would know the small towns um, that are around. So I'll mention one that nobody will know. The town of Fern, Iowa. Um, yeah, it's about six houses on a just a farm road, and right there where there's an intersection, there's about 6 8 houses. That's it. That's Fern. I know other small towns like that too. That's really what they were. Is you had an intersection and you have the four corners, and then you have a couple of houses on either side of the four corners, and there's nothing more than that. And nobody knows it. And when you drive through, they don't even bother to put a sign up that says there's a town there. They don't even bother to do that. You just pass by and say, "Oh, there's a couple houses in the middle of a field," and you keep going. So, yeah, small taste like that. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to consider. And he's saying, Emmanuel, God with us, going to reside in the future in Galilee. You can see that in here. So now you can start to see, why is Matthew making connections here to the Virgin, God with us? Because look here at Galilee is connected within here. So let's keep going. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. You have enlarged the nation and increased their joy. They rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest. Warriors rejoice when dividing the plunder. For as in the day of Midian's defeat you were shattered, the yoke that burdens them, the bar across their shoulders, the rod of their oppressor, every warrior's boot used in battle. Didn't we just read about putting the boot on the neck in Joshua? Yeah, on the kings. Yeah, put the boot on the neck. So every warrior's boot used in battle. And interesting. We're just reading about boots putting on the necks of the kings there. I think it was the kings. Anyway, it was in the battle there Joshua was at the other day. And every garment rolled in blood will be destined for burning in the fuel, or will be fuel for the fire. Okay. Now, hopefully, maybe you're going to keep making more connections here, and you know some of these passages that'll ring with what we just read in Matthew, and what we'll read soon again and more in Matthew. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on forevermore. The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this. Mary asked, "How can this be, since I'm a virgin?" The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The zeal of the Almighty will accomplish this. The Lord has sent a message against Jacob. It will fall on Israel. All the people will know it, Ephraim and in the inhabitants of Samaria, who say with pride and arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with distressed stone. The fig tree have been felled, but we will replace them with cedars. Oh, that's an interesting. That's arrogance. Yeah, we had a fruit tree, but we're going to replace it with lumber. Okay. More prestige there. That's all. But the Lord has strengthened Rezin's foes against them and has spurred their enemies on. Arameans from the east and Philistines from the west have devoured Israel with open mouth. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. But the people will not return to him who struck them, nor have they sought the Lord Almighty. So the Lord will cut off from Israel both head and tail, both palm branch and reed in a single day. The elders and dignitaries are the head, the prophets who lied are the tail. Oh, I'm glad they explained that. That's one of those where, okay, I'm going to cut off the head and the tail. I understand that's symbolic. Um, but I'm glad he explained that. Yeah, the elders are the head. Yeah, that makes sense. And the prophets are the tail. I don't know how I would have got that. But they mislead um, the people. So I don't know if you've ever seen cheetahs run. You know how cheetahs turn? They use their tail. Um, their tail will shift, and that's what they use. It's kind of like a boat rudder. They literally turn their tail, and that causes them to turn. They're running so fast they can't turn with the front. They got to turn with the back. And so, yeah, how do you mislead the people? You know, you might have heard that phrase, "wag the dog," but really more literally, um, a cheetah's tail will guide, and I bet other animals do that too. I just know cheetahs specifically do that, and you can see it. There's videos on it. It's pretty cool. It's even better if you see them in real life. Those who guide this people mislead them, and those who are guided are led astray. Therefore, the Lord will take no pleasure in the young men, nor will he pity the fatherless and widow. For everyone is ungodly and wicked, every mouth speaks folly. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. Look at this. So you've got a repetition there. So there's a description of problems and what will happen, and his anger's not turned away. It's still, and then we have a description of the people's problem, and the anger's not turned away. And we'll look ahead. Boom, there it is again at the end of 21. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away, and his hand is still upraised. So let's read the third of these sections. Surely wickedness burns like a fire. It consumes briar and thorns. It sets the forest thicket ablaze, so that it rolls upward in a column of smoke. By the wrath of the Lord Almighty, the land will be scorched, and the people will be fuel for the fire. They will not spare one another. On the right, they will devour, but still be hungry. On the left, they will eat, but not be satisfied. Each will feed on the flesh of their own offspring. Oh, how awful. Manasseh will feed on Ephraim, and Ephraim on Manasseh. Together they will turn against Judah. Okay, so maybe it's not literal. The more the brother turning against brother, eating in the sense of devouring, in imagery of war. Ooh. So, yet for all this, his anger will not turn away, and his hand is still upraised. And we're not done. There's more. Woe to those who make unjust laws, to those who issue oppressive decrees, to deprive the poor of their rights and withhold justice from the oppressed of my people, making widows their prey and robbing the fatherless. What will you do on the day of reckoning when disaster comes after you? To whom will you run for help? Where will you leave your riches? Nothing will remain but to cringe among the captives and fall among the slain. Yet for all this, his anger is not turned away. His hand is still upraised. So it's, in essence, you could think of, and I don't have how many in front of me, so we're number 4. Oh, let's just scroll. Is there, no, there's not more of those. Okay. Like I say, is this like the 10 plagues, and they're being unrolled? We can still think of it that way, even if there isn't only, or even if there isn't exactly 10. It looks like 4, and then we'll see another woe here. But it's this: the first plague happened, Pharaoh didn't let the people go. The second plague happened, Pharaoh didn't let the people go. The third plague happened, didn't let the people go. So there's just going to be this, well, okay, yeah, maybe I should turn to God, but wait a minute, no, I'm not going to do that. Maybe I should, stop. I really want this to stop. Maybe I should turn to God. No, I'm not going to do that. So that's what the people are going to do. They're going to do that same kind of thing. Oh, wow, this might point that we should turn to God. And well, I'm not doing that. We're fine where we are. We'll get through. We'll double down on our. We're boastful. We're powerful. We'll get through this. Oh, I've got riches. I'll get through. And so, he's making fun of him. Making fun of him. Where are you going to turn? Oh, yay! Could even more be funny today. Oh, wow! Oh, you're gonna wave your credit card at that charging bear? Oh, what's the bear gonna do? Oh no! Oh no! You've got riches. I can't attack you. Yeah, and like I said, making fun of him. Okay. Yeah. So what's gonna happen? You're gonna cringe among the captives or fall among the slain. All right. Now, woe to the Assyrian. Uh oh. The rod of my anger, in whose hand is the club of my wrath. I send him against a godless nation. I dispatch him against a people who anger me, to seize, loot, and snatch plunder, and to trample them down like mud in the streets. But this is not what he intends. This is not what he has in mind. His purpose is to destroy, to put an end to many nations. Are not my commanders all kings, he says? Has not Calno fared like Carchemish? Man, I do not get that word. Is not Hamath like Arpad, and Samaria like Damascus? Is my hand seized? Sorry, as my hand seized the kingdoms of the idols, kingdoms whose images excelled those in Jerusalem and Samaria. Shall I not deal with Jerusalem and her images as I dealt with Samaria and her idols? So, yeah, Assyria, you're going to go do and be the instrument of punishing these idolaters who are supposed to be my people, who I use to punish other idolaters. You're going to do this, so woe to you. Be cautious. Don't be arrogant. Don't be thinking you're all that in a bag of chips. You are an instrument in my hand to do this. When the Lord has finished all his work against Mount Zion and Jerusalem, he will say, I will punish the king of Assyria for the willful pride of his heart and the haughty look in his eyes. Oh no. He's warning them, you're going to go conquer my people and you're going to get your comeuppance afterwards. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to do it then. But they do. All right, let's read this warning to the king. By the strength of my hand I have done this, and by my... Oh, this is what he says. By my wisdom, because I have understanding. I remove the boundaries of nations. I plunder their treasures. Like a mighty one, I subdued their kings. As one reaches into a nest, so my hand reaches for wealth of the nations. As people gather abandoned eggs, so I gather all the countries. Not one flapped a wing, not one opened a mouth to chirp. It's like stealing eggs from birds who abandon their nest. This is easy. Does the axe raise itself above the person who swings it, or the saw boast against the one who uses it? As if a rod were to wield the person who lifts it up, or a club brandish the one who is not wood. Therefore, the Lord Almighty will send a wasting disease upon his sturdy warriors under his pomp. A fire will be kindled. Oh, brought back that pomp word. Like a blazing fire. The light of Israel will become a fire, their Holy One a flame. In a single day, it will burn and consume his thorns and his briars. The splendor of his forests and fertile fields it will completely destroy, as when a sick person wastes away. The remaining trees of his forest will be so few that a child could write them down. Ooh, that's a small number. It's also an insult, if you didn't catch that. In that day, the remnant of Israel, the survivors of Jacob, will no longer rely on him who struck them down, but will truly rely on the Lord, the Holy One of Israel. A remnant will remain, a remnant of Jacob to will return to the mighty God. Though your people will be like the sand of the sea, Israel, only a remnant will return. Destruction has been decreed, overwhelming and righteous. The Lord the Almighty will carry out the destruction decreed upon the whole land. Let's pause there. So all this destruction is going on, all these warnings, and then there's hope. It's not left just saying this is all bad and there's going to be a remnant. I haven't forgotten my promise to Jacob, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. I haven't forgotten my promises. There's going to be a remnant of Jacob. Small piece. It's not going to be the number of the sands of the sea like it currently is. It's going to be a remnant. It's going to be a small part, but it's going to happen. And they're going to be the ones that return. But this destruction has been decreed. It is overwhelming, but it's righteous. I love that idea. It is overwhelming. All who are going to be in the middle are going to be overwhelmed by what's happening, but it's righteous. It is what punishment comes upon those who sin. Therefore, it's righteous. God has the right to judge those who sin against him. As a nation, they are sinning. As a nation, he's judging them. The instrument he's going to use to judge them is Assyria. And then what's he going to do? Then Assyria's judgment will come. What has God done in the past? The Canaanites came up for judgment. What did God do? He used the Israelites to pronounce and bring judgment upon the Canaanites. And so God uses one king, one kingdom, to punish another king, another kingdom when they sin. You get arrogant, haughty, prideful, all these things, worship other gods, and at some point the judgment comes. And so that's what's happening here. But the difference, I want you to see this. The difference is there's going to be a remnant. All those other times when there is supposed to be the judgment coming, there's not supposed to be a remnant. And I don't mean that in the sense of no survivors. Um, there's no one around today calling themselves a Canaanite. Are there people who are potentially descendants of Canaanites? Yeah, there are. Not all of them were killed, but there's no Philistines walking around. There's no Hittites. There's no Perizzites, Hivites. They're all gone from the standpoint of they're not a people. So the judgment on that people is complete. There are no more of that people group. They might be parts of other people groups now, but they're not that people group anymore. The Lord Almighty will carry out the destruction decreed upon the whole land. Um, it's time. Therefore, this is what the Lord the Almighty says: My people who live in Zion, do not be afraid of the Assyrians, who beat you with a rod and lift a club against you, as Egypt did. Very soon my anger against you will end, and my wrath will be directed to their destruction. So, hey, I'm using them to punish you. Don't worry, I'll punish them. And this isn't going to take long. Well, from God's perspective, it's not going to take long. I'm going into captivity for 70 years. That's going to feel like a long time. The Lord Almighty will lash them with a whip, and when he struck down Midian at the rock of Oreb, and he will raise his staff over the waters as he did in Egypt. In that day their burden will be lifted from your shoulders. Ooh. Their yoke from your neck. The yoke will be broken because you have grown so fat. They enter Iath. They pass through Migron. They store supplies at Michmash. That's a fun name, Michmash. They go over the pass and say, We will camp overnight at Geba. Ramah trembles. Gibeah of Saul flees. Cry out, daughter Gallim. Listen, Lasha. Poor Anathoth. Thoth, that's a hard word to get. Yeah, you've probably not heard many of these names, and that's okay. If they're important, I might look at getting a map so we know where all of them, but it really doesn't matter. at this point, or for this purpose, I should say. Madmenah is in flight. The people of Gabim take cover. This day they will halt at Nob. They will shake their fist at the mount of daughter Zion, at the hill of Jerusalem. See, the Lord Almighty, will lop off the bows with great power and boughs with great power, and lofty trees will be felled. The tall ones will be brought low. He will cut down the forest thicket with an axe. Lebanon will fall before the mighty one. So if you thought we were done with images of Jesus, we're not done yet. Here comes more. A shoot will come from the stump of Jesse. From his roots a branch will bear fruit. The Spirit of the Lord will rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and of might, the Spirit of knowledge and fear of the Lord. He will delight in the fear of the Lord. He will not judge by what he sees with his eyes, or decide with what he hears with his ears, but with righteousness he will judge the needy. With justice he will give decisions for the poor on the earth. He will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the breath of his lips he will slay the wicked. Righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist. I'm going to pause there. So we read this, and here's, like I was saying, there's promises after the judgment. There's renewed promises, further promises, expanded promises, however you want to look at them, made that what's going to happen to the remnant. Okay, well, the king's going to be dead. Well, the line of Jesse may look like it's dead. It's going to look like a stump as far as the kingship of the nation. But there is going to spring forth a branch from the roots. A shoot is going to come off. If you've ever seen a stump that has a shoot coming out of it, that's what it's describing here, is that old stump that's all of a sudden a shoot comes out of it. Now, often that doesn't amount to a good tree unless it's a redwood, and then that's going to be a really good tree. So, not that they had redwoods there. So maybe they do have a tree that would do that, similar to redwoods in the Middle East. I'll have to look that up sometime. Anyway, so we have the description of Jesus, and now, as you notice, we have imagery that we could say was fulfilled in his first advent, his first coming, and imagery that will be fulfilled in his second coming. Jesus doesn't do much in essence of the pronouncing judgment. And I recently heard another passage talked about where Jesus is asked to judge between someone and his brother, and say, make my brother give me my inheritance. He's not doing what he's supposed to. And Jesus is like, who am I to judge between you? I'm not going to judge. So in the sense of final judgment, he's coming to do that when he returns. He does make some woes and other things, so we could say he is planting the seeds towards judgment. But so let's keep reading. And I wanted to pause there because here we have, this is the first coming for sure here in 2 and 3, or 1, 2, 3. 4 and 5, there's a mix of where it's talking about him to the poor, but some of this also then looks to the second coming. But here we get to the 6 and beyond, and it clearly has more of that future vibe of the second coming that's going to make sense. So the wolf will live with the lamb, the leopard will lie down with the goat, the calf and the lion and the yearling together, and a little child will lead them. The cow will feed with the bear. Their young will lie down together, and the lion will eat straw like the ox. The infant will play near the cobra's den, and the young child will put its hand in the viper's nest.
They will neither harm nor destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the Lord as the water covers the sea. I don't care whether this is literal or not. I don't need to see a wolf and a lamb eat together or a kid playing with snakes' dens to understand that when Christ returns and creation is restored, that there is not going to be hostility within it. There's not going to be anger. There's not going to be all of this, attacking and thing. Now, what's it going to look like? And are animals going to give birth to other animals? And I don't know. I don't know all of that stuff. But it says there's going to be a child. So are we going to have children? And well, I don't think so. But will people that are children remain children? I don't know. Maybe that's what this is. Um, Fascinating, unanswerable things. But the clear point, I think, is that the peace of God, and it says the knowledge of the Lord will fill the earth. So his presence, who he is, what he's done, all of creation is going to be redeemed. I think that's the point of what it's getting at. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the people. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. I guess here's another thing to say is if we look at this only a second coming, we are missing some of it because some of it is meant to be metaphorical of the first coming as well. Because in that day, the peoples of the nations will rally to him. Well, if this is a second coming, the nations aren't all rallying to him. If you see what I mean. So anyway, there's mixed time within here. In that day, the root of Jesse will stand as a banner for the peoples. The nations will rally to him, and his resting place will be glorious. In that day, the Lord will reach out his hand a second time to reclaim the surviving remnant of his people from Assyria, from lower and from upper Egypt, and from Cush, and from Elam, from Babylon, from Hamath, and from the islands of the Mediterranean. I do not know Hamath. Huh. I'm going to have to look that one up. Okay, it's in Syria. I just didn't know that one. Okay, so getting specific about where, maybe it's their capital or something. I didn't know that. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four corners of the earth. Ephraim's jealousy will vanish, and Judah's enemies will be destroyed. Ephraim will not be jealous of Judah, nor Judah hostile toward Ephraim. They will swoop down on the slopes of Philistia to the west. Together they will plunder the peoples to the east. They will subdue Edom and Moab, and the Ammonites will be subject to them. The Lord will dry up the gulf of the Egyptian sea with a scorching wind. He will sweep his hand over the Euphrates River. He will break it up into 7 streams so that anyone can cross over in sandals. There will be a highway to the remnant of his people that is left from Assyria, as there was for Israel when they came up from Egypt. Okay, so that's concluding. And again, here's the promise of restoration of the people of Israel, of the remnant returning from wherever they are. Some people will make an argument that that happened when the nation of Israel was the current nation of Israel was formed, and that took place. Others will say, no, that hasn't happened yet, because look at all of these things that need to literally happen. The Gulf of Egypt is still there, and the Euphrates is not split up into 7 streams. So it hasn't happened. Um, well, it depends on if you think these things have to be able to be looked at and described exactly as they happen, and if every piece has to happen the way it is here. And I don't think that that's an accurate way to look at it, because if you do that, then you need to say that in the New Testament, Peter, um, he doesn't do that. So then Peter must have been wrong about saying that today this is fulfilled from the prophet Joel, that your young men will, or is it young men prophesy and old men will dream dreams? I forget the order of that, but that prophecy there. Well, if you read the rest of it, it's the moon turning red and other stuff. Like, there's no description of any of that part happening. How was that fulfilled, Peter? I don't get it. So if you think that there has to be a literal checklist of this description means this, and this means this, and this means this, and that, and that, and that, and we have to have, there's 12 things on the list, and all 12 have to look and be described exactly as they are here, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The point is the certainty of God, and that He is caring for His people, and He will redeem them. He will return them. That there's certainty within it, and and certainly, if we're to say that this has already happened, then all of it must be understood metaphorically. That peace has returned. And if you're saying, oh, these nations are going to come against them, well, there won't be peace because they're going to go attack them. Okay, we run up into all kinds of debate over what is and what isn't, what has to be, what doesn't have to be, what could be, what might be, what should be. I think we're missing it at times, because it really should just be about God and His certainty, God and His righteousness, people and our sinfulness. That's what we should be taken away from here. In the midst of all this sinfulness, in the midst of the pronouncement of judgment here, look at the mix all the way through, is that the virgin will conceive and give birth to a son. That the wonderful, where's the wonderful counselor, mighty God? Is that in here? Is that 11? Yeah, I think that's 11. Yeah, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord, and He will delight in the fear of the Lord. So you've got all these things that God is weaving through all the pronouncements here. We should focus on that more than the other. We should focus on the God's judgment is certain, and it is right, and it is upright, and it is righteous. And when it happens, it can be overwhelming. Um, but rather than let that happen, let's follow God and seek after Him. So, anyway, hope that you got something out of that, and learned something, and that you're hanging in there with working through the Bible in a year. Uh, I